Folks, this is breaking news. You're going to want to hear this. The largest power grid inside the United States has declared a level 1 emergency. We're going to be talking about what that means, what that looks like, and why it's so significant. Folks, this is information that's important, whether you're in the PJM Interconnect or whether you're in other grids that are surrounding it or completely isolated grids, because a lot of stress is being put on the American power grid system right now. Let's jump into it, folks. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we watch the news and we keep up to date with what's going on out there, and also keep you in line with what the broader trends are, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. We've been talking a lot about the stability of the U.S. power grid because we keep having all these green initiatives. They're shutting down coal-fired power plants. They're kneecapping all the natural gas power plants, which are desperately needed to offset the up and downs with the solar and wind generation that they're trying to do out there. You cannot have a grid that's that unstable, and yet that's exactly what they're pursuing. They're going all in on trying to make our grids unstable. So now we're in a situation where, once again, a very stable part of the U.S. energy grid is now declaring an emergency, which is unthinkable. Go back 5 to 10 years ago. Why is our power grid so unstable? We're going to get into it. All right, so the PJM Interconnect is servicing 65 million Americans with power. It covers all the way from Chicago over to New York City, down into Virginia, and like I said, up to the Pennsylvania-New York state line. It is a massive area, but not only that, not only is it a huge amount of people, not only is it a huge geography that we're talking about, but the PJM Interconnect is a net exporting power grid. The PJM Interconnect provides power to New England, provides power down to Duke Energy down south in North Carolina and such. It also sends power out to the Midwest. This is not the way it should be. I mean, this is upside down world. It's like Saudi Arabia running out of oil. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. It's like China running out of manufactured parts, or people for that matter. The PJM Interconnect generally exports a lot of electricity to the surrounding power grids. So not only is the PJM Interconnect not having enough power for itself, but that means that it's going to have to cut back on its exports of power to New England, which means New England is in crisis now as well. If the PJM holds back sending power to New England, that's going to be a world of hurt. New England refuses to build power plants, refuses to build natural gas pipelines to get natural gas up there. They're always in crisis up there because they're going all woke with their power grid, and it's destabilizing things. And so they've been leaning on Pennsylvania to produce excess power so that New York and up can have enough electricity. Not only that, but the Midwest also depends upon the PJM Interconnect. And part of that is because, West Virginia, Pennsylvania produce a lot of coal, and they decide to burn that coal pretty close to where they mine it. And so there are a lot of coal-fired power plants in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania historically. Also, there are nuclear power plants in Pennsylvania and Ohio. There's a lot of power that gets generated there to stabilize not just the PJM Interconnect, but the surrounding interconnects. Basically, the whole East Coast Interconnect. PJM is the most critical component of that. And so they've declared an emergency. Basically, what they're doing is they're calling up all power plants to run at full capacity. They're calling up every power plant to run at full capacity. All maintenance issues are to be postponed. If they are in maintenance mode, they are to bring their power plants online as fast as they can and to start producing power to keep from any kind of brownouts. And that's the next thing. If they don't have enough power, they're going to have to start switching off people in order to reduce the load. What's happening? Why is this happening? Well, I'm here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I can tell you this firsthand. Last night, it just did not cool off. Normally it gets down to like the 60s, you know, at night. It was 80 degrees at like 3 a.m. last night. So everyone's having to run their ACs not only during the day, but they had to run their ACs all night long too. So this is very unusual for the Pennsylvania. I know some of you down south and stuff like that, you're like, that ain't nothing. But up here, it's something. And so everyone's cranking their ACs. And this is putting a tremendous load upon the PJM Interconnect, so much so that the PJM is not sure that we're going to have enough power for ourselves, let alone to continue to support other grids surrounding us. So what might happen here? Hopefully that the grid can take the load that's being put on it. We got aging power lines. We have aging infrastructure all over the place. So one, with this record demand of electricity, is the power grid going to be able to handle this much power? That's a first question there. Probably, but there are some components that are not used to handling this much electricity. We're used to putting it on high voltage lines heading up to New England. We're used to putting on high voltage lines heading down. But the local grids all over Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, New Jersey, and Indiana and such, not used to using this much electricity locally. So there could be issues with transformers blowing. There could be issues with power lines and stuff like that. We don't know. We'll see. If that happens, we may have spotty outages just with the usage of power. Secondly, PJM may have to cut back its export of electricity to other power grids nearby, which may cause brownouts in neighboring areas. Or, ultimately, if there's too much power being used and not enough generated in the PJM Interconnect, they will have to start switching off people in a rotational basis. They're supposed to give 24 to 48 hours notice before they do that. They have not issued any warnings that they're going to do that, but we saw with Duke Energy down in North Carolina, they just started switching people off. And that was due to a heat wave last year, right? The heat wave, they just didn't have enough power, and PJM was being strained at that point too, and so they started flipping switches. And they started knocking people off the grid one by one by one by one. And we're going to be seeing that same kind of thing happen if the heat limit just stays up the way it is. Because the South is hot, the North is hot, Midwest is hot. Everybody's using more power than what they normally do, and because of that, there just may not be enough power on the system. Now, when the Duke Energy power outage happened, they also had multiple power plants fail. And because of that, the power plants failing left them at a deficit. And that's why they had to immediately start switching people off. They thought they could bring these power plants online very quickly, and they were not able to do so. Will that same kind of thing happen here? We will see in the coming days whether this emergency response is going to be able to bring up all the power plants that it needs online. On paper, they should have enough power, given their projections. If people use more power than the projections, or if they can't bring as many power plants online, that's where we're going to get into a lot of problems. They are expecting that the power demand will peak today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be shortly after I release this video. So that's when it's supposed to peak, and they say it's going to come down towards 5 o'clock, which doesn't make sense to me because normally 5 o'clock 6 o'clock is usually when peak demand happens. But then again, with the temperatures the way they are, maybe that's what they're really looking at. All right, folks, we're going to keep monitoring this, and even if we lose power here, I will get you updates out. But of course, if my internet goes down, it takes forever to upload these videos through a cell phone. But I will do that nonetheless. We'll keep you connected to what's going on with the PJM Interconnect. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.